It is Wednesday, first hour of our program, time for Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the U.S. Congressman representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin. You can tweet him at Rep, as in Representative, R-E-P, Rep Mark Pocan, and his website, pocan.house.gov, pocan.house.gov. Congressman, welcome. Oh, and just for all of our listeners, Congressman Pocan, Middays with Mark means he's here for the whole hour taking your calls on pretty much any topic you want. Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
So I understand Marco Rubio has done a small open mouth insert foot thing. It doesn't seem to be getting anywhere near the publicity I think it should.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Marco Rubio made the mistake of saying something honestly, and it got a lot of play around the GOP tax scam bill, and now he's trying to walk it back, and they're very unhappy with him and others who don't say that somehow this is the economic boon for the middle class, because everyone knows it's not. It never was intended to be. There's a little bit in there for working families. In 10 years, it completely goes away. They keep the corporate tax cuts. They keep the tax cuts for the wealthy, and 83% of the money in 10 years will go to the top 1 or 2% of people. And he said that's the deal. Basically, it's not going to help the middle class. And, you know, this is the only thing they have done this session. They're trying to point to something, and they want to, of course, hide the fact that this was really done for their donors, as other Republicans previously have said. But, you know, once again, Marco Rubio said that, now trying to reel it back. But the best part, Tom, is, again, people are way smarter than politicians think they are. They've already understood that this is not something going to benefit them. And, in fact, just was a poll, small business owners are saying this isn't going to benefit them either. This is just for the ultra-wealthy.
Yeah. Yeah, remarkable. And the fact that Marco Rubio would own up to that, is he walking back that comment now?
Yeah, he is. He,
of course.
Of course. He was candid and honest.
Yeah.
You can't be a Republican and be candid and honest.
Yeah. And meanwhile, next week, we've got a big net neutrality event happening, and it's part of it is going to be happening where you live and work, I mean, or, you know, in Congress. Tell us about that.
So there's a big day of action a week from today, actually, because today's the 2nd, right? Yeah, so a week from today, the 9th. In the Senate, Senator Markey of Massachusetts and others are trying to push a vote to overturn the decision by the FCC on net neutrality, which essentially is keeping the Internet to stay free and open. You know, President Obama, under his tenure, the FCC put some guidelines in that said you can't block websites, you can't slow down websites, you can't charge companies for access to Internet fast lanes. In other words, local businesses would have the same access as Amazon. Of course, Donald Trump changed that with his FCC, and now all sorts of folks are affected, and the Senate actually is within one vote of being able to overturn that. So there's a lot of action around that. 23 attorney generals in states across the country have sued over this, but we need to be even more active. You know, in my office, Tom, I think before I've reported 6,400 people contacted me in the first 3 weeks, and no one against it. I have updated numbers now. 12,983 people against the decision, no one for it.
Literally, no one has called your office and said, I'm all in favor of Comcast not having net neutrality, but being able to read all my emails?
No executive, no Verizon executive, no Comcast executive, because those would be the only people who are going to benefit, right?
Yeah.
No one. So it's such a skewed issue. This is something we really should be able to win on. So I think, you know, whatever activities people can do in the U.S. Senate between now and June, when a vote's going to happen, we're really close on this one.
Yeah. And I also have a question about the DOJ and this apparent cover-up by Congress, Nunes and his buddies. But in all probability, one of our listeners will call and ask that question, and the lines are already halfway full here. So shall we pick up some phone calls? Is that all right with you?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
David in Greenfield, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I believe in our country's checks and balances. Donald Trump seems ready to end the Iran nuclear treaty. Would Trump only need to use the AUMF to start another never-ending war in the Middle East? or would Trump need to get congressional approval to start a war in Iran?
Good question.
Well, great question, David. It's kind of two issues, and while they may relate, let me address each of them quickly. One, I think he has until May 12th on the Iran agreement. I was one of our whip team on the Democratic side trying to make sure we got that in place. We don't want more nuclear weapons, period. And I think it would be very unwise of the president to not continue that agreement. If he does, Iran very likely could go about trying to put together nuclear weapons, and then we're going to have all sorts of other problems. So that's one. Secondly, right now, every president since 9/11 has, in my opinion, probably overused the authority under the former AUMF that was created that allows them to go into other interventions around the world. The Constitution says it's up to Congress, except for self-defense. Because of this very loose AUMF that was done post 9/11, every president has used it, and each time I think a little more broader than they should. And while there's some conversations in the Senate of having a new one, because we've had this conversation in the House, what they do could be still open-ended, and that would be a terrible idea. And then that would give the president some hook, some reason to do something, whether it be Iran or anywhere, and you wouldn't have the constitutionally required authority coming from Congress. So they're related, but they're two separate issues that we're dealing with.
It seems to me, Congressman, that the only times that we've actually declared war have been when we went to war against white Europeans, when we bombed the crap out of brown people. Whether it's in Central America, whether it's in Grenada, whether it's in Africa, where it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Asia, Vietnam, Korea, 1950. We seem not to need a declaration of war. Am I seeing something here that's not there?
But you're seeing a pattern by our interventions. I would just argue, the people who wrote our Constitution clearly wanted it to be the power of Congress, and I'm guessing it's because we also are the closest to the people. And every time you do something that takes it away from us, sometimes members of Congress like that, right? Because they don't want to have to make a tough decision. So definitely that is a part of the problem, Tom. But also every president, especially since this last AUMF, has used it pretty broadly to just ignore Congress because, let's face it, we are more dysfunctional these days, and they're trying to do something quicker and easier. But the Constitution wasn't written to be quick and easy. It was done to be very thorough, and I think that's why we're trying to get a new AUMF that brings us back to the power happening within Congress, except for self-defense.
Right. Russ in Hickory Hills, Illinois. Russ, thanks for listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, Mr. Pocan, maybe I'm overstating this. Did you ever think when you got in Congress that the United States could be more isolated than North Korea? I mean, when he pulls out of the Iran deal, let's be honest, Europeans are going to turn their back. He's pulled out of the climate. He's pulled out of TPP, NAFTA. Don't forget, North Korea was told by China they'll bury them if they use their nukes. I mean, it's just like this Republican Party is just out to end any kind of relationship with anybody. Am I overstating it? Because these guys don't want nobody to be their friends, it seems like.
I think, Russ, you're bringing up a really great observational point with this president. It's one thing to be America first. It's another thing to be America only. And I think, this isolationism that this president's putting out there isn't done based on things like keeping jobs in America and having good quality jobs worldwide and having it on good standards. It's done out of xenophobia, right? Much of what he's doing is because, as Tom was saying earlier, our problem with some wars, if there's people who have different colored skins in some areas, this president has been far quicker to do things that make us even more isolationist. And I guess I never thought that in a global era where everything is being more connected globally, that we would be in a retreat as much as we are with this president for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, certainly seems so. We're talking with Congressman Mark Pocan. It's Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Every Wednesday, the first hour, he comes on and answers your questions for the hour. And Congressman Pocan, by the way, is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives. His website, pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at @RepMarkPocan. Give him a shout and say hi.